Ever had some big dreams? Well, too bad, because all you're getting is Little Nightmares. For those of you who are new to my channel, 2 years ago I made a video on Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and how I felt they were the most underrated horror games of the past decade. And now, 2 years later, Little Nightmares 3 has just come out under a new studio, Supermassive Games, the ones behind the enhanced edition of the second one, and Until Dawn. So going into it, I was cautiously optimistic, but pretty hyped nonetheless. But after playing it, something felt off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it. The game looked like Little Nightmares and played like Little Nightmares, but at the same time, felt like a cheap imitation. And I think I know why. Compared to the previous games in the franchise where you would play alone or with an AI companion, still not over that, this game is co-op. And in some cases, horror games can be less creepy when you're playing alongside a friend.
That crow hung itself, dude.
Bro couldn't live.
This is deep.
But the issue isn't that it's co-op. In fact, you can still play with an AI companion if you don't have any friends. And co-op horror games can work given the right direction. Tarsier Studios, the OG devs of Little Nightmares, are even making a new co-op horror game, Nanoscopic Night Terrors. Reanimal, which looks to be an even darker take on their previous work.
I'm sure you can.
Oh, no! Oh my gosh, he snapped me in half. Supermassive, on the other hand, tried to emulate what Tarsier did, but ended up with a half-baked attempt. That being said, the addition of co-op did make the game bearable, but that's mostly because I was playing with one of the best possible gamers for the job.
Go in there, bro. I dare you. Trust me, it's funny.
Without that co-op experience, however, I don't know if I would have gotten through it, which brings me to my point. Because they designed the game around co-op, the characters feel like an afterthought. And despite their small stature, what made Little Nightmares so memorable are those big character moments. And more than that, Little Nightmares 3 just lacks a bit of personality. Look, I still haven't forgiven Six for what she did in the second game, but at least her character made me feel something. To understand what I mean, let's take a look at this game's story. You play as either Lo, a guy sporting a bow and arrow cosplaying as a bird, or Alone, a girl with a wrench wearing a jumpsuit and Plague Doctor goggles. I will say I am a fan of the whole steampunk aesthetic they were going for. While the main character designs are unique and fitting to the world of Little Nightmares, the reasoning as to why they have their weapons, well, because co-op. Looking past that, Lo's whole objective is to follow his map to find a way out of an ongoing nightmare. To progress to the next chapter, Lo also has the ability to warp into mirrors, which break every time Alone exits the other side. I'm sure this won't come back as a major plot point or anything. Anyway, I won't go into spoilers just yet, but let's just say the plot twist of this game comes halfway through in a flashback, so the ending felt like a foregone conclusion rather than a shock. And compared to the other two games in the series, they never gave us a reason to care. Yes, they're good friends who help each other, but that's it. There is a moment where Lo becomes frustrated that he couldn't go through a mirror, but that's dropped pretty quickly. Personally, the story and the characters just never connected with me. That being said, the focus should be on other things that made us fall in love with the originals in the first place. Besides the story, what made Little Nightmares such a compelling world was the atmosphere. The sense of scale, the sound design, the tension, all of it made the games that much more immersive. And this game does have those grand atmospheric perspective shots and chase scenes from the first two games. However, it doesn't quite feel the same. In both previous games, there was always this dark and gritty tone that made you feel like the world was against you. Enemies would be ravenous, clawing their way to capture and presumably eat you by any means necessary. And while we do get some of that here, a lot of it gets stripped down to the creatures being scary because big. For example, the first chapter has you hiding from a giant baby doll, who, if it looks at you, turns you into stone. While this is a change to the type of enemies you would normally encounter, I think conceptually this opens up quite a few possibilities. Will it turn into a Shadow of Colossus type deal where we have to climb up the baby to slay it, or maybe it swallows us as we try to find a way to escape? Nope, you just hide behind objects until it stops looking at you, and then it goes away because of crows. Yeah, pretty underwhelming. While the gameplay in the first two games wasn't exactly groundbreaking, it was still creative enough to make each section feel different. Here, the solution to most encounters is to either hide under a desk or run down a hallway until you get caught by some BS. Oh my. Okay, maybe that part actually stayed the same. Another thing that did stay pretty consistent was the sound design. The factory bugs swarming over you, the sounds of guts as you pull a dead body apart, the gong echoing throughout the building. And the music, while kind of generic, wasn't distracting and fit well within the world. Speaking of the world, I also really like the set pieces they chose. The desert sea, the candy factory, and the circus.
Circus in town?
Stylistically, those seem like cool environments to explore. It would be if there was actually any substance here. I know I just started complimenting the game, but hear me out. In most areas, there are objects or creatures in the background that look interactable, but are just there to be props. I get environmental storytelling, but what made Little Nightmares so terrifying was that anything could attack you at any moment. Also, there's some cutscenes like the carnival ride that feel like atmosphere for the sake of atmosphere rather than an actual story or gameplay purpose. It's like they saw what the first two games did, but didn't understand why they were there in the first place. And look, this happens when game franchises change studios, I get it. However, it can't be understated how important it is to give the game substance, especially Little Nightmares, whose fanbase loves looking into all the little Easter eggs and hidden messages to come up with theories. And look, I really wanted to love this game, but there are so many little things that end up being super massive mistakes. I mentioned before that they spent most of their energy on the co-op, but even that has its fair share of jank. Let me go. No, I'm trapped in here, bro. I'm trapped in here. Let me out. Basically, every single interaction is scripted, meaning if you don't follow the exact path they want you to go, you're done for. What?
What?
How does he know where we are? Well, okay, that's just, okay, this is it's scripted. Also, in chase scenes, if one person gets slightly ahead of the other, the AI speeds up its script, leading to...
Sometimes
Oh, come on, bro.
About...
Ain't no way she got that. If there's anything I learned from this game, it's that there is no first try.
Over here.
What?
Dark Souls.
But this isn't to say that the combat can't be fun. You did briefly have a weapon in the second one, but here you've got one all game. They aren't used for every enemy, but the ones they are used for can be a challenge, like for the puppet enemies, where Lo shoots their heads off, letting Alone finish the job. In these areas, the AI would be hyper-aggressive, making timing and placement extremely important. In addition to combat, your weapons are also used for puzzles, if you can even call them that. Alright, that might be a bit harsh, but most of them were a little too straightforward, having either you or your buddy shoot or smash respectively. You do gain some new items temporarily, like the umbrella, Ella, that allows you to float up air currents and prevent fall damage. And in another level, you also get a flashlight, which isn't utilized nearly as well as the second one. I thought maybe there would be some creative utility to these items, but they're mostly to get around. Which is a shame, because you'd think if their priority is co-op, it would be a bit more layered.
Thanks for the help, Brad.
Yeah, man. Okay, I will say as the game reached the later chapters, it did get more interesting. Specifically, in the institution Lo was originally from. As we discovered the same room we've been seeing in Lo's flashbacks, sitting in the middle is a lone doll. See what I did there? This doll, other than revealing the twist early, has the capability to change the environment around us to that of the past, before the building was destroyed. What does it look like without it? Oh.
No! That's what it looks like, bro.
Oh, wow. While a cool concept, this was mostly used for, once again, getting around. In fact, you do a lot of traveling from point A to point B, which makes the game drag sometimes. Speaking of dragging, for the final boss, you fight the Hypnotist, a giant man with giant limbs and a saggy face.
I'm with the science team!
If you listen to the audio fiction series, The Sounds of Nightmares, which is very uncanny considering the characters don't talk in the games, but I digress, it is heavily implied that the deuteragonist of the series, Otto, is the Hypnotist, who used to be a psychiatrist. He was the one looming over Lo in the flashback of his padded cell. Presumably, Lo was a patient getting mistreated. So here, we finally fight back. Both you and your partner trade blows, with Alone hitting the gong to stun him, and Lo sniping the eyes to attack. After one last hit to the glasses and arrow to the eye, the Hypnotist is no more. Honestly, he was easy peasy. The real villain of this section was the falling debris.
Oh my god! The fucking TV rolled on you, dude.
Which leads us to the ending. As they both get blown away from the wreckage, Alone hangs on to Lo as we see a very familiar predicament. Thankfully, we don't get a repeat as they fall and embrace each other together. However, before they land, we see Lo waking up. He embraces his doll, which turns into Alone, showing that she was all in Lay head. But then we fade back to the nightmare, where Lo once again tries to go through the mirror, only to be met by Alone hesitating. hinting that she knows something we clearly also do. Regardless, she follows him in, only to be spat out, causing her to fade away. Wait, imaginary friends aren't real and a character named Alone ends up alone? Never could have guessed. And that's it. We do see an after-credit scene of Lo, who finally escaped into the real world, attempting to put the mirror back together. There's also the reveal that the map Lo was looking at was actually just a drawing he made of his home. Honestly, I much preferred it when the world was this abstract representation of reality, rather than a literal nightmare world. Either way, I expected a lot more from this game. And like I mentioned before, it isn't bad per se, it's just very underbaked. The skin of Little Nightmares was there, but the bones were cracked, shattered, and dislocated from where they needed to be. For those who liked this game, I'm glad you were able to find it enjoyable. As much as I liked them trying something different with the addition of co-op, my friend and I both agreed it just didn't hit the same. Even the ending, which on the surface is pretty solid, lacks the same character depth that we came to know and love from the originals. But when you lock 2 more chapters under an expansion pass, which release months apart, sure, that might eventually make the story feel more full, but why would you not release the game with a full complete story already? Wait, I know why. Because money. There is the possibility that the DLC could tie everything together and make the story 10 times better, but the ending to the base game is still extremely unsatisfying as it is. And that really sucks, because Little Nightmares is what got me back into making videos again. So hopefully when Reanimal comes out, it restores the feeling that Little Nightmares created, not only for myself, but so many fans of the franchise. Let's just hope the game fixes those bugs.
I'm standing still. I'm gonna knock you down. Tell me if you get knocked down.
I do? What? That's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.